Hey guys, this is Pedro and I'm back with a brand new interview again covering before the start of the 2024 VCT Americas Kickoff event. I am here accompanied by JoshRT, the head coach for G2 Esports ahead of the start of the aforementioned competition. Really appreciate you again for taking the time and just doing this interview, Josh. I really appreciate it. I just want to start off just covering exactly what this experience has been like for you to finally reach tier one VCT after spending this past previous year grinding it out and just winning Ascension with the guard. So, how has this experience been like for you so far?
It's been great. I feel grateful about the whole thing. Um, and I feel like I had a really good experience going through challengers, and I'm able to appreciate this moment much more as a result.
Yeah, and of course, and now that you guys have been able to overcome quite a very shaky off season with all of the issues that this team faced following the departure from the guard and stuff like that. How have you been, working through this off season as the coach and just leading through this group of players uh, to be prepared for the start of this season?
Yeah, so when the off season hit and we lost the guard as an org, and then G2 picked us up. Obviously, it was a big transition period, and I had to make sure that the boys' heads were in the right spot and keep them focused on the goal, right, to prepare for the season opener. So with a lot of uncertainty, I think it was my job to make sure players felt more certain about what they needed to do. And I think leading up to this kickoff tournament, like we prepared the best we can so far.
I know each team has had their own focus on which aspect in their game they want to tweak and then improve for the start of the season. So for you as the coach of one of the teams, in Americas, what has been the one thing that you feel you've been focusing the most in order for this team to be, on the same level as the rest of the other tier one teams for this year?
First and foremost, like the most important thing was setting the culture and a team dynamic. Um, and as you guys know, we replaced one player with replacing Tex with Leaf, and even with one player change, a lot can change based on that. And both those players provided different skill sets and communication styles, and like the different type of personality they brought, and that definitely affected the team in different ways. So despite like the strategy involved in the team compositions and the playbook, I had to make sure the team dynamic is set straight so that we can perform our best no matter what the conditions are. As these like conditions are with like the different map pools, different metas, and we just got to be flexible in that regard. So that was the first part, and then the second part was to make sure we are flexible as a group in adapting the changing conditions.
What do you feel has been the most difficult part in trying to make sure those kinds of changes were done as seamless and as fruitful as possible?
Um, the most difficult part was just making sure like we have those hard conversations and like understanding like what each of us need to operate to our to our best. And it requires sometimes some sacrifice on like how you wanted to do things. So for example, Leaf was a very vocal player in his previous team on Cloud9. Um, and now with a team that's very vocal across the board. Like you don't need that presence all the time. So there's some stepping back, some compromises, some figuring out like when to put in your like 2 cents a time. And I encourage players to always like put their 2 cents and like make this their team, right? So yeah, that was like the most important thing to make sure like everybody felt like it's they can play at their peak.
Yeah, of course, and um, in line with doing so, I want to also now grab your I want to cover your contribution to the team. Of course, we already mentioned talked a little bit about it within the team, but um, for you, it's been a very long road for you to get to this point, and not just focusing on the team, but also just looking at your individual trajectory to just reach VCT. I remember talking to you a few years ago, actually, like following the end of I think Challenges playoffs. I think you were a coach of NRG, and I think you guys were out of the I think LCQ or something like that. Neither here nor there. And it's very interesting to see your rise to the top and getting into VCT Americas. When it comes to looking at your trajectory and your road to getting here, what do you feel helped you the most as a coach, as an individual, and basically as someone that just helps the team, your players, regardless of if they're different or not?
Yeah, actually, I think experience and failure taught me a lot. And just going back to the energy days, like I didn't do as well as I hoped, despite the belief from the GM at the time and the ownership. And we did have a very talented roster, but I just couldn't make it work. So we didn't qualify for the final tournament of the year. We lost to, I believe, Cloud9 in LCQ. And when franchise came in, the partnership system came in, I wasn't called up as the Energy's head coach. As you know, that was like the five coaches were determined at that point, and obviously I was very disappointed. But that spurred me into trying even harder and like learn more about the craft and coaching. And it was a hard look at like what I missed in the energy days, and I sought to like pick up the skills necessary uh and bring that to the guard. And that's generally a more systematic way of thinking about coaching. If you don't have a system, you're not going to be as successful, or at least you can't replicate the success as you hope. It'll be a little bit random. So with that, and coupled with my own life experience, I'm 32 years old. Like I've been through my 20s, and these guys are in their early 20s. Like I understand um what they're going through. So it's kind of like giving that mentorship to my players, having a really a good plan on like how to prove each player that's able to make me a more effective coach. So yeah, lessons learned from my failures, essentially.
And plenty of perspectives, different perspectives, as a matter of fact, when it comes to how people view their time in tier two. For those that actually do play in tier two, and you're someone that did exactly that for this past year or previous year. Um, how do you look back at your time in competing in challenges and just going through the grind and just winning ascension through blood, sweat, and tears? How much has that experience helped in you becoming the current type of coach that you are now with G2?
I think it gave me more evidence that what I'm doing is working, right? I have like the right approach. And as you know, it was a very up and down season, whether from results or from outside of the game or perspective. And, you know, um, and that was always kind of tough, but it gave us like the evidence that like we are resilient, as a group. And and for me personally, I'm able to handle the tougher situations and make sure the boys feel comfortable and like knowing what to do next.
Mm-hmm.
So, like having that experience under my belt, I'm sure that will help me a lot with the G2 VCT run. That will for sure happen.
Yeah, and when it does happen, what do you think is the biggest obstacle that is facing the team, before the start of the actual official matches? But still, what do you think is the biggest obstacle from your perspective that is facing G2 as of now?
Um, I mean the cheesy answer is us. Because at the end of the day, it's all about like how you respond to the problems, and every team will have their problems, right? Whether it be internal or the opponent you're facing in your next matchup. I believe the team that's able to tackle all those problems in a manner that like always promotes like a level of like team chemistry, um, and like not give up, right? Will be the team that will end top four and make it to champs. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think the cheaty answer is like we're the biggest obstacle, but obviously I think there's really, really strong teams in each region that we have to overcome.
Um, Looking at the team's trajectory for the previous year, I believe you were basically on your own as the main coach and just the person supporting the team. Has there been any new? Have you had more help now for this year compared to the previous year, or is it just still just you as the coach?
We do have assistant coach that's unannounced. So as far as that like goes, like I do have more help this time around.
Oh, for sure. And was it also how difficult was it to just basically be on your own, and how alleviating is it now that you finally have help for this year now in VCT?
Um, how difficult it was? It was manageable. I think you can still do the job as a head coach by yourself. It's just a matter of like you said, like I said before, having a system in managing all the different parts of a team, right? Not to mention that I still have a lot of help from my GM, Sale Wolf, in regards of like the things outside of the game, and that's a big burden that's lifted off my shoulder, so I can mainly focus on the actual team and the in-game aspects of the game. But now with an assistant coach or any analyst, right? You can delegate some of the work and make sure you can cover more of a broader base. Um, but previously, I would have to make get by with what I thought was like the minimum viable product, so to speak, right? Like, so I'm not gonna have everything, but I think it's good enough for it to work at this level for this opponent, and like no need to overcomplicate things. So when I was a solo coach, it actually helped in some ways to just simplify as much as I can because it's just me, right? Um, and it also makes it so that my like the coach staff message is very clear because it comes from one person. Now with like an additional staff member, and I imagine other teams have the same issue. And I used to run a staff myself at Energy. You always have to figure out like how do you make your message consistent to the players so that they're not confused. Because at the end of the day, the players need to perform and they need to learn what you're trying to teach them. And we're teachers, so let's make sure like we can teach as effectively as possible. So yeah, it's gonna be better this year. But having more people doesn't necessarily mean like you'll be more effective as a coach. In fact, it could be just as hard, I would say.
And now, as we're wrapping up, I want to ask a few more questions. The first one, um, which team are you most looking forward to face, as a coach? And when it comes to looking at each of the teams that you have been surveying throughout the league, what is one team that you feel you most want to face? And also, on top of that, is there a coach that you feel you want to try your hand on facing this year?
Um, I the teams that I want to beat this year, definitely Energy, Leviathan, Loud, just like the teams that were mainly dominant last year. And then like now they have like really good like super teams, so to speak, for like each region, right? One is even a mixed roster of like different talents, that being Leviathan. Um, and then if you go across the seas, like obviously you got like the Fanatics and the Navis of the world that you want to try your hand on and see if you can beat them. Um, and the Paper X's, DRX as well. So with all that, like I would say I want to try my best against like a Chat who's been around for this whole time, or even a Potter, even though she had to retool her roster, she was the winning coach champs. Um, I think I respect every opponent, every coach, and what they offer. So like I can't wait to try my hand against all of them, actually.
For you able to do exactly that and just put up a good fight and snatch some wins in the process. Josh, really appreciate you taking the time just doing this interview once again. Really appreciate it, and best of luck in the future.
Thanks, Pedro.
All right, man. Take it, man. Take care and best of luck.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a good day.